Alright, Landers, so today we're going to be going over the next set of Limit Breaker quests. In this case, we'll be starting September 1st. And I'll be honest, I'm actually looking forward to this one because it looks to be quite the fun Limit Breaker quest, mainly due to the rules that we do have here. It doesn't seem super restrictive. It looks like there are a lot of good characters. And for the most part, maybe this time around, you don't even need to pull for the new Aaroniero. Obviously, he's going to be great in slot 1 to maybe get to stage 25. But why exactly is that? Well, let's have a look at this month's rules. So slot 1 wants you to bring a speed character with no affiliation killer. Rule 1 is speed damage times 2, melee damage times 2 is rule 2, and then rule 3 is killer effect times 4. So any melee speed character with no affiliation killer is going to be good here, but at the same time, just bring a speed melee character and they're going to be great as is. One of the go-tos that I know I'm going to be using if I don't put Aaroniero is, of course, the new 9th anniversary Kenpachi. He is a character that doesn't have killer, he never will have killer, but his damage output is stupid high, and he also does have poise break, so he's going to be really good in slot number 1. Slot 2 wants you to bring a mind character with holo killer, and more specifically, they want to be ranged with, again, holo killer. If they do, they get a 4 times killer effect. Slot 2, of course, is designed for the Halloween Nini. She might be best in slot 2, but I think a good replacement here is going to be Grammy. Because Grammy, has like crazy high damage output. If you duped him out, he's a ranged character with holo killer. He gets all the damage buffs. Sure, he doesn't have attribute advantage, but I think at this point with his damage output and his killer is probably more important. So slot 1, you can basically just bring Kenpachi. Slot 2, you can basically just bring Grammy. And then slot 3, you want to bring a speed range character. If they have no affiliation killer, even better. Not like it's a requirement, but you do want it to be ranged. Again, I don't like slot 3 having rules. I like it when it's just flexible. But because it is range damage with no affiliation enemies, slot 3 wants you to bring the brand new Macy. If you bring Macy, well then Kenpachi is getting a recharge in between stages. And that's going to make him even better. But likewise, at the same time, you also could just bring the brand new Toshiro. So if you pulled in the anniversary, part 1 and part 2, and you pulled all the characters, you don't even need like anyone else. You can just bring those 3 characters into slot 1, slot 2, and slot 3, and likely easily get to stage 20, and depending on your dupe investment, maybe very easily get into stage 25. With that said though, let's have a look at some other cards that we can actually bring for this respective Limit Breaker quest. So again, slot 1, we want to bring a speed character that is most importantly a melee character with no affiliation killer. Let's look at alternative options. In this case, right from the get-go, we actually potentially can bring 7th anniversary Uryu. He's actually a good character here. His damage output is good as is. He has the gauge effect too, and when the gauge does activate, he will be recharging his strong attacks. He can inflict drain and also weakening, so his damage output is going to be good. A high chance to inflict both weakening and drain as well. So if you are someone that does like to have that safe character that wants to, heal your character, because let's be honest, right, a lot of characters nowadays have like more damage at full stamina. You're giving them more full stamina damage soul traits, links for example. If your character gets hit, the run is dead. And in Limit Breaker, you have to spend 5 minutes in one run. So ideally, if you're trying to get as far as you possibly can, you want it to be perfect. So having a character that can just heal themselves if you do make a mistake is also going to be really good for overall your just time being saved. Now, one good thing about them too is they also does have a team hero for your entire team. So that's great too. So if your teammates also take damage, like near the end of a stage, they can recover and be back up to full stamina the next time they are available. His summon also does hit very hard. It is a debuff effect too. So if you do decide to use your summon on this character, it will mean that you clear his respective stage even faster. Now, the most important slot is always going to be slot 1 because that allows you to get into that break into that next milestone because he will be the, the first hurdle, the first super hard poised enemy stage. So I think it can be a great character in slot 1, especially if you are someone that's been playing this game since his character's released back in the 7th anniversary. You might have him max transcended. If you do, and if you don't, definitely worth taking out. Obviously, it's worth mentioning the new Aaroniero, who's going to be a really good character here too. He's a character that has a very high and consistent damage output that isn't reliant on inflicting stat ailments. Frenzy +2, a 140% damage increase to enemies that aren't inflicted with a status summon, on top of the fact that he does have a gauge effect that not only reduces his cooldown when the gauge does activate, it then gives him 100% Berserker and also an additional Frenzy, so Frenzy +3 overall. His damage output when the gauge is active is going to be ridiculously high, especially given the fact that he does have no affiliation killer plus, so you are going to clear very, very fast if you do decide to pull a wetsuit. When it comes to no affiliation characters, that's essentially it. You're not going to bring anyone else. So what you're better off doing then is just bring a speed melee character, and in that case, you have some good alternatives. Now, what you can do, like I've already mentioned, is Kenpachi. He's never going to have killer when it comes to Limit Breaker quest, which is weird because he has Poise Break. Like, they want you to use him in Limit Breaker because it has this skill, and it's going to be nice. And now, Aaroniero also has Poise Break too, so that's going to make him even better. But we've not actually yet used a good character that has like crazy damage output with also Poise Break. Because the only character prior to 9th anniversary, you know, Kenpachi and also this new upcoming Uetsu was 8th anniversary Ichigo, and it's really good. It's nice just to trap the enemies in place with a vortex, but obviously 8th anniversary Ichigo doesn't have a high damage output. Kenpachi and Uetsu does. The great part about Kenpachi is also right, like he has Frenzy +3 with 100% Berserker. Every 5 seconds you can inflict Lacerator and also Weakening, and that lets you do more damage. And in Limit Breaker you can take full advantage of the Weakening effect, right? It's going to last the full duration. You have an EX attack that will give you that 360% SP boost. Limit Breaker itself does last 5 minutes, so you can probably get that off maybe twice, maybe 3 times if you use it early. Probably not, because you're probably going to clear this quest super fast. And then even with Kenpachi too, you have weakened defense, so if you do decide to use your Soul Bomb, you're then even doing more damage. So if you are someone like me that pulled this character, Max Transcended, man, he's going to be absolutely crazy in slot 1. Absolutely crazy. Even at 1 out of 5, absolutely crazy. But 5/5, damn, it's going to be crazier. Lucky for us, not the only good characters though, because you can also use Sangdu. Maybe you put him on the 3 multis. He doesn't have killer, but his damage output's good as is. He's getting the 4 times damage effect, speed damage ×2, melee damage ×2. Just like Uetsu, he is a gauge character. So when the gauge does activate, he gets Sprinter plus extra flash steps more so, and also an additional frenzy. His damage output when the gauge isn't active is high as is, as he does have Frenzy +2, a 120% SP boost, more damage to frozen enemies, increased chance to get that SP boost as well, and also does have multi-barriers. So in the potential chance you find yourself getting hit more often, the barriers of course are going to help you out. Really good character. I think maybe 3rd, maybe 4th best character if you don't own Uetsu and also Kenpachi, and even to a certain extent, of course, even Yashiro Unohana, because anytime you can bring a melee speed character, it's always worth taking out Unohana. Now, damage output, of course, is also very good, right? Frenzy +2. You have the trap effect on the SA3, so very likely to inflict a statusman on the poised enemies. The weakening lets you do 50% more damage, and then also, most importantly, she does have Rampage, and Rampage gives you 2% more damage on all of your attacks when you do get 1 kill. And that, of course, caps out at 50 kills, 100% overall. She has the extra recharge. She can also heal your teammates in case they do take damage. Yachiro, of course, is going to be an amazing character in this particular slot, even though she doesn't have killer. The 4 times damage effect, it's Yachiro. Like I mentioned, if you are bringing Macy in slot 3, all these characters we talked about get even better because they're just being able to spam all their strong attacks and clear super fast. I'm honestly excited to try out all 4 characters that I did mention it, and they're definitely going to be your best 4. Other characters you can bring, while not as good, maybe Senjumaru, maybe Tensa. I would more so say Senjumaru to be fair, but she doesn't have killer, right? And in her case, killer might be more important, but I think there's a lot of good characters. There's plenty of good speed characters you can bring in slot 1. I don't think anyone should struggle in that respective slot. For slot 2, though, you want to bring a mind character with, of course, Hollow Killer, and you want to make sure they are a ranged one. Now, in this case, there's only one good character, that, of course, being Nini. Nini is a bit awkward, I will be honest. I don't like the way they designed her. You know, if you do know how she does play, she has high damage output when the gauge is active, as she does get an additional Frenzy +1 and 100% Berserker. And keep in mind, built in, she does have Frenzy +1, good Berserker value, more full stamina damage, and Gauge Rampage will help her, you know, build up that gauge where she will then have her high, you know, DPS. The problem with her, personally, is that she doesn't have the recharge when the gauge does activate. So it makes her a bit awkward. You want to make sure your SA3 is not the attack that activates the gauge, because then otherwise you won't be able to, you know, use it again, right? Almost, you want to make sure that when you do activate the gauge, your SA3 can be used when the gauge is active, the gauge effect. She's still going to be good here because she does have all the damage multipliers. Killer effect, she has the range damage ×2. She does have weakening and burn. That's a good combination. Weakening will let her do 50% more damage, and the burn itself will, of course, also do damage over time, which, as we've seen in Limit Breaker, as these enemies have good or really high stamina, that DOT adds up over time. It really does help out. Given that the damage multipliers here are for ranged characters and also killer, there's basically no other character you want to bring. Like, you don't even want to bring I guess you could bring a mind range character. In that case, truth be told, your options don't really open up all that much. I would probably not bring Manino or Esnot, to be honest. Not even 7th anniversary Ichigo I would bring. I guess though what we could do is bring a mind hollow killer. In that case, you can bring Yuha. He might be, to be fair, he'll be a good character in slot 2. Obviously, as we do know, he's quite a self-sufficient unit. He will be recharging his strong attacks in between stages. If you have him max transcended, even better. His damage output, of course, is good as is, right? Frenzy +2, 80% SP boost, good Berserker value, recharges strong attacks, and then of course gets more damage the more kills he does get, and he's very easily able to get this more berserker, more melee damage, more devastation, and then also most importantly an extra soul bomb. While he might be slower, let's say you have the perfect character for slot 1, perfect character for slot 3, he might be your slowest character, but he does give you an extra soul bomb, so you're able to clear slot 1 or slot 3 even faster, and maybe even get to use his soul bomb, which again does have weakened defense, so it'll allow you to clear a lot faster. So I think many people's go-to would definitely be Yuha Buck, but keep in mind he's only getting the clear effect times 4, so what we can potentially do is bring a holo character that is ranged, because again, you don't really have to care about attribute here. So in this case, you could maybe bring Renewed Ichigo, maybe. I would definitely say though, of course, like I already mentioned, Gremmy. Gremmy has Holo Killer Plus. He is doing 40% more damage to Holo enemies, and Gremmy himself just hits ridiculously hard. I mean, the character itself has basically a 90% strong attack damage increase, with Frenzy Free, an increased chance to inflict status limits against Holos, then does 30% more damage to those status afflicted enemies with the 80% SP boost, on top of the fact that he has weakened defense. So if you do decide to use a summon, you're clearing even faster. He has an EX attack that can also do more damage and also boost your team stats for 15 seconds. If you use that in his poised enemy stage, it will therefore allow your next character in slot 3 to clear their stage a bit faster, since they have 40% more stats. And again, I know a lot of people went crazy in part 1 of the anniversary. If you have this character 2-5, he is probably the best character in slot 2. Even though Nini gets all the damage buffs, he is probably still the best character to use, I will be honest. So I think everyone's go-to for slot 1 and slot 2 should be Kenpachi and Gremmy, which therefore means you don't even have to pull on this new banner for Owetsu, assuming you pulled on part 1 of the anniversary. When it comes to slot 3, again, you want to bring a speed character, again, once more with no affiliation killer, right? So the character we mentioned that you can use in slot 1, you can probably bring in slot 3, although in this case, they won't be getting the 2 times range effect. So what we can have a look at is our best range speed characters. And in this case, to be fair, there's not that many new ones. Like, the newest ones that we have are, like, Nad characters. I'll be curious to see how Nell would perform, but you don't really want to bring Nad characters in Limit Breaker unless they are Aizen. But of course, the best character in slot 3 is going to be Macy, right? She has Killer, she has a good damage output still with Frenzy 2, 80% HP boost, more damage to paralyzed and weakened enemies. She's a bit awkward compared to the newer characters, since she does have an increased chance to inflict status elements, but given the fact that she has a tracking vortex, she should be relatively fine. But the most important part here is that she will be giving your speed characters recharge in between stages, so the character using in slot 1 are going to perform a lot better. If you don't have her, again, I would probably recommend bringing your next best speed character essentially, but I guess we could look at just no affiliation killers that are ranged. And in that case, your options open a tad bit. In a way, you could potentially get away with using Gremmy in slot 3, but he is a technique character, so he is getting that, less damage for the most part. He isn't even getting, killer, for example. So let's actually specify no affiliation killer. In that case, you can bring these characters. I think if anything, your next best thing, if you don't have Macy, is probably bringing Toshiro. Toshiro does have an increased chance against no affiliation enemies. He does more damage to frozen enemies. He has a high damage output, Frenzy 2, 80% SP boost, what you want, weakened defense. If you do decide to use a soul bomb, he will clear his stage respectively faster. And he also has an EX attack. So yeah, overall, I would definitely say this Limit Breaker is going to be relatively easy. Slot 2 and slot 3, I think, has good options. For the most part, if you pulled on the anniversary, part 1 and part 2, more specifically, if you pulled Gremmy, Toshiro, and also Kenpachi, you should be relatively fine. This is going to be one of those Limit Breaker quests where you don't really need the new character to rank super far or go as high as you possibly can. I'd be very curious to see how a 1 out of 5 Owetsu would compare to a 5/5 Kenny, which I personally own. So there's just more reasons for me to not pull in this End of Month banner. Because if I do pull Owetsu, is he going to be better than Kenpachi at 1 out of 5? Maybe he'll surprise us, but Kenpachi I actually do really like, and I kind of want to use him over Owetsu in Limit Breaker. Gremmy again can be great in slot 2, and again Toshiro can be used in slot 3. For me, when you do see my video on this respective Limit Breaker quest, it's going to be a max transcending Kenpachi, a max transcending Gremmy, and a max transcending Macy. So I might have like an absolutely crazy team, and if that team can only get to stage 25, I'm going to be absolutely shocked. But either way, I guess that is the team that I'll be using in this upcoming Limit Breaker quest. Let me know what team you guys plan to use, and let's do that next time. Take care, and peace.